Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Hutchins. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Association of Nonprofits, and I am delighted to be here with all of you. I'm really excited about today's MANP Connects. First of all, we're coming up on 5 years. Well, we started in 2020, so we're coming up on many years of doing MANP Connects, and delighted to be here with you this morning. Even though at the same time we know that we in the nonprofit sector are facing many changes at the federal policy level that are impacting many of our organizations, our partners in the work that we do through the local governments and through state government, and as well as our friends and family and colleagues and communities. So lots of policy changes and potential threats, if not already, to the work that we are all doing to strengthen Maine communities. And so I just wanted to start off by saying that the Maine Association of Nonprofits remains ready with our strong relationship with the National Council of Nonprofits to be getting information out to you as soon as we have it and as soon as we can that is about what's going on at the federal level, and particularly some of the litigation in the pushback that's happening in the courts. And I'm really delighted to have Tiffany from the National Council of Nonprofits. She is the public policy director and general counsel there. And as Tiffany comes on the camera, I would really love our chat room to be full of thanks and gratitude and whatever those emojis are that celebrate, because the work that Tiffany and her colleagues, Diane is the new CEO there, it's just amazing. I attended a meeting yesterday, and it's so incredible the amount of work that you all have been doing, Tiffany. And today we're here to talk about not necessarily the specifics, because Mary Alice Scott, who does advocacy here for us in Maine, will make sure our chat reminds everyone of the links, the incredible document that you all have put together, explaining the different executive orders, and she'll be putting in links to that document that you all are keeping up to date, as well as some of the other links that we have on our site about how to respond and stay up to date. So gratitude, Tiffany. And we're here, though, to generally talk about, now more than ever, alliances are important. And we wanted to start with the most important network to us at MANP, which is the National Council of Nonprofits. So thank you for being here, Tiffany. And if you could just start by talking about what you doing these days. What does it
Good
matter to be
question.
part of a network?
Well, thanks, Jennifer, for having me, and thank you, ma'am, for asking me to call in, and thanks for all the love in the chat. But things are wild right now. We're pretty busy, and Jennifer, to your point, you know, we at the National Council like to say we can champion, connect, and inform the nonprofit sector. That is our mission and our goals, and those are the three pillars of what we do every day. And we do that through our network, right? We are a network of networks, including MANP. We have something like 56-ish state associations in 48 states. I don't do math. There's a couple doubles. That's why the math doesn't add up. But we're able to move quickly and nimbly because of our network, right? If we like to champion by seeing what's happening at the federal level, but we say we work in all three branches of government and all three levels of government. So if something happens in Maine, property tax issue, for example, and we get a question about it, we can say, oh, connect to, not just New Hampshire and Vermont and New England, but connect with Michigan, connect with Alaska, connect with Hawaii, especially on something like charitable giving incentives. We've seen it before. There's a trend now. And so we're not just championing from this is an advocacy standpoint, this is something that we need to take action on, but a connecting and an informing standpoint of talk to the other people in the network. It's kind of lonely, the work that you do, your members. And by the way, if you're a member of MANP, you're a member of ours, so thank you for that. But we're hearing from your members saying, I'm so tired, I'm so overworked, right? And knowing
Yeah.
that there are thousands of other people in nonprofit jobs doing similar work and have seen some of this before, and we can connect you to those people, it just makes it a little less lonely. It kind of gives a little bit, a little bit more spark, especially whenever things are coming so fast and so furious. So that's like the quick and dirty version of what we do every day. But I know that MAMP, you do that within Maine every day. We just do it on a national scale.
Yeah. And so can you talk about if if you're if you're a land trust in northern Maine, and you're worried about what might be happening at the federal level, with regards to some of the questions that have been coming down about climate change, how is it helpful to be part of the national of MAMP and therefore part of the national network,
So we're
National Council of Network?
Yeah, so we're tracking all that at the federal level, but we're also seeing the trends across the country. So if you are connected to Mary Alice, if you're connected to Jennifer, if you are on the call and you are seeing this happen within your own organization, if you are a land trust, for example, what we're doing is we're seeing what kind of federal things are passing, whether they're laws or right now, as Jennifer mentioned earlier, more like executive orders that are affecting various subsectors. We have what Jennifer mentioned, a chart that's laying out these executive orders, but we're trying to get you the fastest information possible. So we're sharing that information to the network, to MAMP, to Jennifer, to Mary Alice, kind of within hours sometimes. And then they can parse out what's affecting your members. So you can say, oh, here's an environmental issue, land trust, you should check out this executive order, and see how it applies to you. If it applies to you, it might not, and that's okay, right? But knowledge is power. What we've been hearing on a lot of these calls lately is knowing the information as quickly as possible and trying to parse through it as easily as possible to see which ones apply where is what's most helpful right now. And you do that through not just like working and hearing from us, but also through hearing from each other. At the same time, like we come, we bring things down. We also do things across. We have national partners. If you need to be connected to other environmental groups or other immigration groups, and I think you're talking about that later, across the country, we can try to connect you that way. And on the flip side, which is most important, is if you are seeing something within your own organization and you share that with MAMP, they'll share it with us, and then we will all have more information collectively so we can keep an eye on what's happening, and parse through our information faster to be like, oh, this really matters to Maine. And it probably also really matters to Florida. And so we'll make sure to include that in any updates that we have.
And I think if I am correct, some of the information that our members have been sharing with us about how they get impacted by some of these policy changes does end up coming up to you guys and can be helpful.
Absolutely. And so, uh, we represent 30,000 nonprofits across the country, including you. And we want to make sure we have those real life stories. That's what actually affects change, right? Having real life stories on the ground. My funding got turned off, or this policy change is going to make, add 3 levels of reporting requirements to whatever it might be. We're able to then take that directly to Congress at times. You are able to take that to Congress. And whenever we have if we have a lot of those stories, we're able to have a united front say, this isn't just happening here, it's happening all these other places as well. And we're able to mobilize because of it. And so hearing your stories is extremely important, not just for MAMP, but also for us.
Actually, Tiffany, that's a really, I'm going to take the opportunity right now, because you are the perfect person to talk about this, is what would you say to a person who works at a nonprofit that, in terms of whether or not they should go directly to a member of their delegation and voice their opinion right now? Are they allowed to do that as an employee of a nonprofit?
Yes, you are allowed to do that. And we say that everyone can and should advocate every day. Advocacy is just who can I talk to today to advance my mission, whether it's a member of Congress or if it's your neighbor, whoever it might be. Lobbying, you are permitted to lobby under 501c3. It is a permitted activity. You just have to report it. We have lots of information on our website on how to do that. So don't be scared. But if you need someone to hear with authority, yes, you can do this. You can do this. And right now, it's really important to be talking to whether it's a member of Congress or your city council member or your local, supervisor of your town, whatever it might be. We've heard that 5 calls is the tipping point, especially at the local level. So you just do your little part. It doesn't need to be scary. Um, but if you're seeing something federally, definitely pick up the phone and call. Picking up the phone and calling is the number one most effective way. You can also organize emails and letters and things, but picking up the phone is the fastest, most effective way to actually influence Congress.
And then can we just to be super clear here, what is the one red flag for if you're speaking on behalf of a nonprofit that you really need to stick away from?
You cannot be partisan. So nonprofits must be nonprofit, or they must be nonpartisan, which means you cannot support or oppose candidates for public office. That's all it says. Cannot support or oppose candidates for public office. That's what's actually the verbiage within the federal statute. And all that means is you can't say, oh, I really support Sam and you should vote for Sam. And I am using my tax exempt status and representing my organization while saying that. You can do it as an individual, but you can't do it as your organization. So it's really simple. It's very clear. You do it every day anyways. We know that you understand this, but that's when people ask about it, it's a very clear line.
Great. Thank you very much, Tiffany. I appreciate that. So the other thing I'd love to have you talk about is, can you talk about the community letter that we were working on prior to the current executive orders? And the other big issue in Congress right now is the debate, and I mean the budget. There's lots of debates of the budget, and the change in the tax code. And so could you talk a little bit about how signing on to community letters like that is helpful to the work that you're doing to defend nonprofits in those types of congressional debates?
Yeah, so some breaking news. We just sent up the letter on Wednesday. 4,500 nonprofits across the country signed on, more than 4,500. We sent it to every single House and Senate office. And it's more than 100 organizations from Maine signed on, which is incredible, especially for, compared to other states. So that's awesome. Good
Yeah,
work.
I think we were very close to the top in winning. Don't you think, Tiffany?
I think you were very close to the top.
I think we were very close to the
Absolutely.
top. Yeah.
But no, it's really important because it shows that we're all aligned, right? It shows that we have an impact and an effect within our communities. We're closer to our communities than the politicians are most of the time, right? Whenever we all speak with one voice, you can't be ignored. The letter was very clear on saying that nonprofits are, economic drivers. We're workforce. We are part of the workforce. We're not just, sometimes people have these very ridiculous views of what nonprofits actually do. And so being able to be very clear in that and actually have a voice together and say it is in all 50 states, can't say for every single district, but probably majority of the districts, right? Whenever everyone's hearing this from a single voice, it has a bigger impact because the fastest way to like break something down is to say, oh, well, this side says this, and your side says that, and so it's not going to do anything. Like that's a really easy out for a lot of politicians that they like to take it a lot. Whenever you say, 4,500 nonprofits think that you should support charitable giving so that we can continue to do our work. There's not a whole lot of like pushback that you can give with like, oh, well, but I heard from 3 nonprofits that we should cut this. Like you can't really make that argument. So it's a really powerful thing. It's a really easy thing to do, to write up a letter and have a bunch of people sign on and have it from a like very clear messaging standpoint. So we'll be sharing that letter out pretty broadly as well.
Great. So before you go, and I am going to let you go in a second, but what do you need from us in Maine, the people here on this call and the organizations they represent? What's the best thing we can do to support you and all the hard work that you're doing to support all of us in Washington, D.C.?
A Number one, sign up with MANP. Make sure you're connected and involved with MANP because they're getting the fastest, most updated information from us, sometimes on an hourly basis. Number two, sign up for our newsletter. Sign up for MAP's newsletter. Sign up for our newsletter. We put it out every other week. Free, easy. It kind of just gives you the highlights. We break it down from federal and state. And then kind of if we have any action alerts, if we have any information where we actually want you to do something, sign on to the letter. Make a call, those types of things. We put that at the top so it's really clear and you get that information very quickly and very easily. And it's all free. So please do those two things. Make sure you're involved with MAMP, make sure you sign up to our newsletter, and make sure, or I guess three things, and make sure you sign up for MAMP's newsletter as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Tiffany. We're really grateful for you, and take care of yourself. I hope you do something to rest this weekend.
It depends on the weather, right? Hopefully I can go for a walk. But no, thank you so much for having me. I think these calls are great. And I think I joined about 5 years ago. So happy birthday.
Yes, you did. You're a repeat customer. Thanks, Tiffany.
Thank you all.
So my next guest is Ruben Torres. He is with the Maine Immigrant Rights Center. And Ruben, are you there with me today? I hope so. Hi.
I am. Good to see everybody. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you so much. I know that there's a lot going on for you. I think you said that you're in Augusta for a commission meeting. So no rest for the weary, right, Ruben?
No, it's always go, go, go. Sometimes on the weekends you get to, close your eyes for a couple minutes.
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving us some of your energy and time this morning. We really appreciate it. Let's dive right in. Tell me about the Maine Immigrant Rights Coalition. Who's a member of the coalition, and how does that work? What does it mean to be a member of the coalition? What are you all? What are your goals, and how do you work together?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, just thank you everybody for taking the time to be here. I really appreciate you being here and listening to some of these conversations. Tiffany provided a great presentation. I know that Nick will provide us with some great information as well. But excited to see some familiar faces and excited to be able to share a little bit about our work. The Maine Immigrants Rights Coalition is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year, and we're very excited to be a growing coalition. We started with 20 members and have now grown to over 100.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really impressive how much we've been able to grow in that time period, and it's really just been a part of the members of the community coming together under a shared mission. We really strive to improve the economics, legal, and social conditions experienced by Maine's immigrants community, and try to work together to advance those issues through information sharing, collaboration, and advocacy. And those are really our three pillars of work that we really try to focus on as a coalition. But really, the value of our coalition really stems from our membership. We have a vast array of members, some of whom are actually present on this call. It's good to see them. But we really value the work that they do. The work that we do wouldn't be possible without the work that they do. And as a result of that, we try to support them. And a lot of that support is usually highlighted through the work that we do abroad, whether it be in Augusta, outside of Portland, or in DC. But we really try to convene a membership and try to establish ways for members to provide feedback into the work that we're doing. So that way, the work that we do stays relevant to what their needs on the ground are, and try to provide them the resources and tools that they need to do the work on the ground as well. That's the role of the staff at MERC, is we really try to support the members in our coalition into being able to establish whatever priorities they have and being able to further the projects that they have. Shared projects is something that is a huge way that we support our coalition members in connecting them with other partners on the ground. So we connect a lot of different members from various sectors on shared projects, so that way they can grow and foster new relationships. Another thing that I just wanted to highlight is that we're really proud that over 40% of our coalition members are ECBOs. And what that means is that they're ethnic community-based organizations. This means that these are organizations that are either founded or led by a person of color, immigrant, or someone with a refugee background. So we're really proud of that, and we really try to support all these organizations and the projects that they do that support community members on the ground.
How, Ruben, how do you go about, I would imagine, and but correct me if I'm wrong, that it do because there's a lot out there. There's a lot of issues you could work on. How do you go about taking 100 different groups and with their various needs and goals and deciding which specific issues you're going to work on as the Maine Immigrant Rights Coalition? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, there's no perfect way to go about it. So that makes it a little bit more difficult in trying to find a certain way or a certain path. But our path is by no means the easiest, and by no means the one that's the best for every organization. But it's been working for us, and we're always trying to constantly improve it. We try to convene regular meetings. We have a big annual membership meeting in the summer where we try to collect the voices and make sure that people in our coalition are representing and saying what they're seeing on the ground. We also try to hold monthly member meetings. I say try because we do take a break in the summer and we take an occasional break in the winter to allow people some rest. But we do convene monthly member meetings, and that allows a space for coalition members to share their perspectives so we can learn from each other. And so that way we can get a better understanding of the priorities. We try to send out different polls, convene policy meetings as well, so that way our members and partners can share different policy priorities that they have before a legislative session and during a legislative session. And then we try to, as a group, decide and read about those bills together, present those issues, and as a group decide what's the best course of action, how we can support each other from various sectors in a housing bill or in a tax bill or in a healthcare bill. And so we form coalitions within our coalition, and
Mm.
that way we can really support each other in a very directed capacity. But as a whole, we try to convene general meetings to try to provide room and feedback from our members.
We had a question from the audience, if you will, about how concerned people and groups who may not be directly connected to the Maine Immigrant Rights Coalition and its various issues, but definitely wants to show their support. How can they demonstrate that? How can they get involved in what you might need? Do you ever need actual people to show up at the State House, or what other ways can related groups who are not necessarily a clear member participate to help your agenda?
That's a great question. And it's something that we have definitely been thinking about over the last year in expanding our relationships and partnerships. There's different ways that people can support and different ways that people can connect with different projects and with different support mechanisms. The advocacy is the big one that people normally tend to understand and gravitate to. I like to say that we're all advocates, we just don't know it. Some people just have the title to it. But we are all advocates, and it's something that Tiffany highlighted, whether it's with our neighbors or at our city council. That's a great and easy way to make your voice heard and let the people that are in elected positions understand that the priorities of the community are that of being welcoming, that of supporting people who need it the most in our community. And while it may not completely sway the needle all the time, it is important, and it's important to do so because it allows people in our communities to know that this is something that we can really highlight and say that this is a huge need and the priority. So the city council is a great one. At Augusta is definitely one that we always need support. We have different bills that come up that we always are trying to testify either in support of a policy issue on those bills or against. There are bills this session that have huge impact, not just for immigrants, but at the state as a whole. And we try to send out advocacy alerts to our coalition members and on a public listserv so people know when these bills are coming up and they can submit testimony or they can show up in person and testify. And that really helps a lot. There's also different community aspects that can really help build a lot of these issues. Immigrants, people from different groups, backgrounds, they have shared interests and shared issues and shared problems at the same time. So building community within all these different groups really helps bridge that understanding. So for instance, one thing that we're really working on is building a World Refugee Day event with a various set of partners from religious communities to education partners. So that way we can say, hey, here's a space where you can just come relax, come understand and build relationships. And that's it. You need to get the understanding of who it is that you're talking about, who it is that is a member of your community. And then that way, when these issues come up about surveillance, about deportation, you have a better understanding that these issues aren't affecting another person, they're affecting a member of your community. And that's really the big one. It's just creating an understanding that while there's all these headlines and the executive orders and these policies that are making big news, the real issue is that they're affecting people on the ground, and understanding how these big policy names and issues affect people in our community will really help us be better advocates for our communities.
Yeah, thanks, Ruben. I'm so glad that you are sharing what you're sharing. You know, relationship building is the phrase that's been staying in my mind since these last few weeks. And recognizing, I think that sometimes we get so used to being in our silos, if you want, even if the silo right next to us is a silo we really care about. Sometimes we need like permission to like go into the other silo, right? And so I'm so glad you're saying that, because the best thing we can be doing is intentionally and proactively going to a community that we're curious about, who we haven't been connected with, but we do care about their success, and getting to know them, right? And you've just inspired me, Ruben. It's like I've been having this debate with my teenager at home about she actually is telling me to get off my phone, right? She calls me the screenager, right? And she's totally right. And it's just so funny. And I'm just like, but I gotta, I know I gotta put down like some of this barrage of news and everything. I just got inspired, Ruben. It's like, what if we all stopped looking at that so much and instead started reading our fellow websites and newsletters, like, because I'm sure Merck has all of that information, and sign up for your newsletter, get to know your organization, and just start reading that instead, and make what we do, rather than, because MANP and others will let you know when you need to know, right? And instead made the commitment of getting to know our fellow organizations and the silos next to us. So thank you so much, Ruben. I'm so grateful you took the time to meet with us today. And we at MANP really value your participation, and we look forward to walking in step with you over these next many, many years.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody for your thoughtful comments in the chat. And I'll make sure to drop my email in the chat. I think it was shared out maybe with my bio, but if it wasn't, I'll make sure to drop it in the chat in case anybody wants to connect.
Perfect. Thanks, Ruben. So, Nick, are you ready? We've got our third guest, folks. Nick is coming. Janzen's coming from the Maine Conservation Voters, and he is in charge of a coalition, the name of which I always get wrong. So I'm going to have Nick introduce himself. How are you doing today, Nick?
I'm good, Jen. Thanks so much for having me. I'm the partnerships director at Maine Conservation Voters, and I facilitate the Environmental Priorities Coalition. So The EPC is about a 40-member organization of climate action, conservation, and public health advocates. And we've been coming together for a little over 20 years now to create a common legislative agenda that we all advocate for at the State House in Augusta.
Yeah, and so let me pick on you for talking directly about what the current environment is like for you. How are you experiencing the executive actions that have been taking place since Inauguration Day?
Yeah, so, thankfully we have not yet been immediately impacted by any of those spending cuts. It is something we're really worried about though, because these executive orders are so broad and conservation is not the bipartisan issue it once was, particularly because we focus so much on climate change these days, that we are really concerned about what might happen down the road. The other thing that is impacting us even a little more immediately is all of the federal job cuts. The government employees who are on the ground doing the actual conservation work, who live in towns all over Maine and who are our neighbors and who are finding themselves out of work in these really horrible situations, but who are actually responsible for doing a lot of the work that gets implemented as a result of policies passed at the federal level, similar to what we're working on here, and that affects the work we do here. So we're really starting to, like Tiffany said, collect a lot of individual stories and use those impactfully to advocate for those folks so they can continue doing the work that, we kind of rely on to protect the environment.
Yeah. And I mentioned this a little bit to Ruben. I'm curious about your perspective. Um, we can talk about, at MANP, we talk about consensus building. We represent over 1,000 nonprofits all across the state with different missions, different sizes, different perspectives, different backgrounds, different priorities. Um, how how do you, as a leader of a coalition, um, uh, get at consensus building so that you can, because right, you've got to focus your efforts, and what do you do when the members of your coalition don't agree? What are the strategies you use to develop consensus so you can move forward together?
Yeah, I think there's three really important things that we certainly use and that I think apply to any coalition. So, process, trust, and having a clear vision. Like I said, we have some really diverse organizations in the EPC, but they all see themselves in the coalition's mission to protect the environment. All of our organizations, whether they're public health advocates, whether they're youth groups, traditional conservation groups, they all benefit when the environment is clean and healthy and protected. And so that gives everyone a reason to show up. And then building trust is just really key to any coalition. So, meet in person, share meals together, and, we don't always disagree. We don't always come to consensus quickly. And so when those moments happen, taking the time afterwards to kind of heal and make up and get everyone back on the same page really goes a long way, even if it might feel a little uncomfortable in the moment. And then the last really important piece for us is the process we use to choose our legislative priorities and to choose what we work on. It stayed more or less the same during the EPC's existence, minus a few necessary changes when we were all meeting remotely during COVID. But every year, every coalition member knows they can show up to a couple of meetings. They can propose a priority as long as they kind of have the resources to shepherd it through the legislative process. And they will get an opportunity to be heard and to make their case. And we stay as long as we need to stay to work through that. And then we vote. Everyone gets an equal vote, no matter how involved or not involved you are in the coalition. We all get input into this collective decision. And, like I said, some years are tougher than others, but this year I was actually really pleased. We all came together really pretty quickly. We have 9 priorities this year, and just having that kind of repetition and that clear set of rules that everyone knows and has bought into really helps smooth things over.
Yeah, I want to just repeat that for everyone. Process, trust, and a clear vision. And it seems so simple, but time and again, I need to remind myself of those things, and especially at a time when it feels like change is happening so fast that we can lose touch of what are those basics. And I just, Nick, I just think about how when I was in public policy school, it was our first fundamental public policy in my grad program, and the professor said, how many of you want to fix all the problems? And we all raised our hands. And he's like, okay, well, none of you should get your public policy degree. And he said, listen, the bottom line is democracy is about everybody coming together and nobody getting what they really want. And I mean, yes, it was tongue in cheek, but it was also about that idea that if you build trust in relationships and everybody sees the transparent process and there's a clear vision, that vision is so key, right? Because as you said, everybody knows at the end of the day that your coalition is fighting for conservation, that people may come into the room and leave a little disgruntled, but they know they're doing it for a greater cause. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is to remember. And I'm just being very transparent here. It's always really helpful to me because I don't like anybody to be mad at me. I want everybody to be happy. But sometimes we can't all be exactly that happy. Could you talk about how you mobilize people beyond your membership? And a little similar to Ruben, before I let you go, what can we do to those of us who are watching what you're working on and care about the outcome, how best can we support you?
Yeah. Well, and I would just say quickly too, having that clear vision, that piece is simple, and it's something I have to tell myself like every morning when I get up, because there is so much going on and it's so easy to get distracted,
Yeah.
that it can be really hard to focus. But all of our organizations, there's a reason the organization formed. There is something that we're each individually best at doing, and so I think
Mhm.
focusing on that really, really helps. In terms of how we mobilize folks outside of the EPC, historically, this is something we have not really done. We're a somewhat internal-facing coalition, and we let our organizational members and then their individual members really shine in the State House when we're testifying and writing LTEs and doing all the other advocacy work. Um, Given how much is changing so quickly just over this past couple months, we really are reaching out to whoever we can get in touch with and trying to collect some of those individual stories, because that really is what's moving elected officials right now. It's not white papers, it's not having a brilliant policy idea, it's responding and helping to people who are going through somewhat traumatic events at the moment. And we're seeing a lot of traction with that. So we're just relying on our networks like this one to talk to people, to connect to the friend of the friend, to, take a moment to chat with someone at the grocery store and let the conversation play out and following up. We're really trying to lean into that a lot more right now. Um, and, in terms of how people can be helpful, I think Ruben said it really well. Show up and use your voice. Go to the State House, testify in an individual capacity, write a letter to your representative. Doing those things, having those numbers really, really helps, even more than the individual content sometimes. We got into a situation during the last legislative session where some of our coalition members were asked to kind of take their foot off the gas and, trust the legislative sponsor and we'll get this through. And as many of you, I'm sure, know, a lot of bills died on the appropriation table last year and didn't get passed. And after the session, we were all sort of kicking ourselves a little bit. Maybe we shouldn't have taken our foot off the gas. Maybe we should have gotten more people out, mobilized more people, and that might have made a difference. So I think that's the most important thing we can be doing right now.
Yeah, I think, Nick, it's so true. We really need to, those of us who have maybe not been engaged in some of these issues because we've been taking for granted people like Ruben and Tiffany and yourself, Nick, as having it covered, or maybe not even, I'm really thinking about how I think most people just don't even understand what nonprofits actually do in our country, right? And have taken for granted all of the work that we've been doing and don't understand what it means for it to go away. And so I know I'm preaching to the choir, so to speak, to use a tired analogy, but the, you know, now is definitely the time to call your legislator, whether it's at the state level or the federal level, and as an individual citizen that's not a particular aligned with a particular organization, and say that you care about these issues and you care about these people and you care about the resources in Maine. I think that's probably the biggest message that I'm getting on this call with all of you. I'm really grateful to you. Hey, quickly, Mary Alice, do you want to add anything? Thank you, Nick, for your time. I really appreciate it. Before I let all my friends on this call go and do all the work that they're doing, I just want to give you, Mary Alice, a chance to pipe in case you want to lift up everything. Here's our esteemed advocacy manager here for the Maine Association of Nonprofits. We've been talking a lot about federal policy, but there's stuff happening in Maine too that she's working on. But anyway, we've got a couple of minutes, Mary Alice. What do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing just I think Ellis put in the chat earlier, but MANP has a good page on networks and coalitions. And if you're an organization that doesn't have capacity, to be leading the charge on a given issue, I think just finding out who the existing coalitions and alliances are that you might want to be part of is a great place to start. And then the things that MANP are working on at the state level, at least, are property tax, as Tiffany alluded to. So if you own property, I'd love for you to email me. I can put my email in the chat so we can connect about protecting your property tax exemption. And state contracting. We have had a lot of conversations about the challenges about state contracting facing nonprofits over many decades. So if you have issues with contracting, I would love to connect with you on that. And I won't go on and on, but federal stuff, we rely on Tiffany a lot, and we try to keep our members as updated as we can.
What's the first takeaway that's standing out for you today from our conversation?
Yeah, I just think that it's really interesting to hear how different each of the guests use coalition building in their different strategies, whether it's sort of like NCN has tentacles that go out everywhere and they connect through different coalition of coalitions, and then MCV kind of at the opposite end, for not quite opposite, but it's just really interesting to think about it being really internal, really intentional. And I love the idea of in-person meetings where you're all voting together, and everybody getting a voice.
Do people still do that? That just seems so weird.
I'm ready.
I wonder if people with in-person meetings for voting would be searching for the button on their Zoom screen to see how, oh, that's right, I can use my hand.
Yeah.
Well, thank you,
yeah.
Mary Alice.
Yeah, thank you. This is great. Thanks.
Yeah, really good. Okay, everybody, I'm going to let you go. Thank you for coming to MANP Connects. We're going to have another one in March, so we hope you're all there, and take it easy. Take some time to breathe and rest and relax and get to know all three of our organizations that we're on today. They're going to be working really hard for all of us to be supporting our Maine communities. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again on a MANP Connects. Bye.